Shalum, Shalum, and welcome to the channel. If you're tuning in for the first time, my name is Symmanayah, and these are words I'm compelled to present to an awakening set-apart nation, to those who are drawn by the Almighty Creator, Yahuah, who is the beginning and the end, drawn by Him to His word that was manifest before us in the name of Yahusha. If you are one who seeks to do His will, I consider you my brother, my sister, my family, knowing that both the chosen children of Yahuah, the Hebrews, and that Yahuah drew Gentiles together by Yahusha, His word. So together we are made one nation in spirit by the almighty power of the Almighty Father through His word, Yahusha. This is why it says no one can come unto the Father except through the Son, for the Son, Yahusha, represents the word of Yahuah. With that said, this series, Letter in Spirit, is about us beginning to understand that through the Spirit of Yahuah sent in Yahusha's name as our teacher, as John 14:26 speak of, He makes alive the scriptures. You see, there are so many different translations of scriptures, so many different Bibles out there, some leaving out books, some changing words altogether. But it is the Spirit of Yahuah that will make one the understanding that He wants us to have, the desires that He wants us to have. This series, Letter in Spirit, each time I present an episode, I will have on here to consider 2 Corinthians 3:4-6, which talks about the letter kills, but the Spirit makes alive. And I will present the case to you, my brothers and sisters, that we need both combined in order to understand what's going on. The scriptures use, for an example, our body, our bodies as one, many members, but one. And if we look at the example of a body, one thing we have flowing throughout our body is blood. And blood is mixed with water and oxygen. And I suggest to you, my brothers and sisters, that the Almighty Father created us this way to realize that it is by the blood of Yahusha we live, we gain everlasting life. It is by the breath of Yahuah, through His Spirit, we live each day, and by His word. With that said, let me emphasize and present the case how, when we begin to see the connections of instructions from scriptures, when we begin to see the connections that are presented before us, one towards another, we will understand that life's connections are very important for such a time as this. Let's get into it. Everyone wants to live. I present the case of things that make life connections in this episode. The body has many members, and each experiences the components of life. So we each have a responsibility, my brothers and sisters. The time is now to see how they connect one towards another. Before I unpack this subject, life connections, I'm compelled to make known that I'm aware of the scriptures regarding language. And I want to say this and share this because I will talk repeatedly on the matter of language. For Yahusha to come together in unity, we must understand the dynamics in the place of language in the scheme of things. So I want to share with you how we came to different languages. I think it's important for life connections. Please note, I'm aware of what occurred during times past regarding language and why there is a desire to return to the pure lip. In other words, as we are awakening, as we are discovering that we are true Hebrews, many want to find out, well, what was that original language? What was that pure lip? So I want to talk about this because I think language is important when it comes to life connections. So come with me to Genesis 11, 1 through 3. Genesis 11, 1 through 3 reads as follows, and I'm reading through the scripture version 2009 of my sword. I will be reading from that translation when I present scriptures. Genesis 11, 1 through 3 says, and all the earth had one language and one speech. And it came to be as they set out from the east that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said to each other, come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. It goes on to say, they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens, and make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered all over the face of the earth. Then Yahuah came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. And Yahuah said, look, they are one people, they all have one language, and this is what they begin to do, and now they are not going to be withheld from doing whatever they plan to do. You see, man's drifting away from discerning the desires of the Most High, beginning to think about making a name for themselves. And it goes on to say in the 7th to the 8th verse, come, let us go down there and confuse their language, so that they do not understand one another's speech. And Yahuah scattered them from there over the face of the earth, and they left off building the city. This is what occurred in the scattering. In the scattering, when man had one language, and as a result of their desire to uplift themselves, the Almighty Father scattered us. And we end up with different languages. But if you go to Zephaniah 3:9, it states that there will come a time where we will have that clean one language. It reads in Zephaniah 3:9, for then I shall turn unto the people a clean lip, so that they all call on the name of Yahuah to serve him with one shoulder. Because of this verse, my brothers and sisters, there are many who have embraced this verse alone and believe that they are pursuing that clean language, that clean lip. Some translations say pure language. Many, my brothers and sisters, many have an eagerness to return to the clean lip or pure language. And this has resulted in misleading and deceptive teachings. Come with me. Please be advised, those who think they are learning the pure language may have difficulties discerning life connections in the scriptures. You see, there are those who are erroneously taught that modern Hebrew is the pure language or clean lip. By going to modern Hebrew first, it may result in challenges, or at the very least, be time-consuming. There are those who will go from English to Hebrew back to English. This can be very time-consuming, especially when they think they are mastering the Hebrew language, when they are not. Listen, my brothers and sisters, I have no problem with learning other languages, but it is wrong to tell people you are teaching the pure language, when in fact, modern Hebrew is an Aramaic-influenced dialect. It is not the pure lip or the clean language. There are those who also believe that Paleo-Hebrew is the pure lip. they are sadly mistaken. We must be careful of how we spend our time, lest it causes us to stumble and miss life connections. You see, my brothers and sisters, even in the Hebrew language, terms have multiple meanings, multiple definitions. And communicating is important for life connections. Let us now review some scriptures that I believe are life connections, represent life connections. Consider these words, my brothers and sisters. And he humbled you and let you suffer hunger and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, to make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but every word that comes from the mouth of Yahuwah. Stay with me as I share some connections and why this is important to know that every word that we live on is every day that we live is a result of the words of Yahuwah. Come with me to Leviticus, 23rd chapter, verse 6. Leviticus 23rd chapter, verse 6. It says, on the 15th day of this new moon is the festival of Mazat to Yahuwah. 7 days you eat unleavened bread. It's talking about eating unleavened bread. It's talking about the feast of unleavened bread. Stay with me as I make the connection. Notice that we see the feast of unleavened bread. We see that the scriptures tell us man doesn't live by bread alone, but every word that proceeds out of the mouth of Yahuwah. Now, journey with me as I make some connections here, my brothers and sisters. In Matthew 3rd chapter, 12th verse, it says, his winnowing fork is in hand, and he shall thoroughly cleanse the threshing floor and gather the wheat into the storehouse, but the chaff he shall burn with unquenchable fire. How do you get bread? It requires flour. In most cases, people will use wheat. There are other types of flour, but I want to stress the relationship of the threshing floor and how he talks about gathering the wheat. I want to talk about how the wheat being processed is used so that we can get bread. Do you know that there's a scripture that say, give us today our daily bread? Stay with me. I'm going to connect these. The feasts, not living by bread alone, the feast times with unleavened bread. And it's saying, give us today our daily bread. John 6:47 through 49 says this. Truly, truly, I say to you, he who believes in me possesses everlasting life. I am the bread of life. Your fathers ate the manna in the wilderness, and they died. So let's tie some things together. We can't live by bread alone. In other words, we cannot live by just the manifestation of Yahusha. We must understand in his manifestation what he represents. He represents the word. Thus, man can't live by bread alone, but by the word of Yahuwah. And the word is Yahusha. And notice how the second feast, my brothers and sisters, if you looked at the feast times spoken of in Leviticus, you'll see the first feast was Passover, and it was instructions to life. Yahusha was given instructions, and if they follow those instructions, they will live. And I submit to you, following the instructions led to life. And that life was the bread of life. It led us to Yahuwah. Through his word manifests before us, making it clear that he was the unleavened bread and is the unleavened bread, not influenced by any other than the spirit and might of the Almighty Father, manifests as the unleavened bread. You see, many people focus on the 7 feasts and don't even look at the purpose, the everlasting instruction that they provide, the life connections of how throughout Scripture the Almighty Father has put emphasis on wheat, on bread, on his word. I submit to you, my brothers and sisters, if you're able to see these connections, it just may contribute to making us stronger. He goes on to say in John 6, chapter 6, verse 50 and 51, "This is the bread which comes down out of heaven, so that anyone might eat of it and not die. I am the living bread which came down out of the heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he shall live forever. And indeed, the bread that I shall give is my flesh, which I shall give you for life, for the life of the world." The power and might of the bread of life, the word of Yahuah, going before us. Life connections. Throughout the scriptures, there are different times that the Almighty Father puts emphasis on the bread of life in his word. Without such, we could not have the connections that we have with one another, with understanding his scriptures. Believe it or not, bread has been used throughout the scriptures. Many fail to discern how it is often used to symbolize the manifestation of the Almighty Father, the Almighty Yahuwah's word, Yahusha. How many among us have discerned the connections of wheat and bread? Do you know the base of bread is water and flour? Who has considered how this makes unleavened bread? Yes, water and flour makes unleavened bread. Who among us has given thought to how in order to get bread, there must be wheat or a similar plant that can make flour? You might say, what does this have to do with anything? We don't ask enough questions. And I believe when we ask enough questions, we'll see life connections. We'll see how instructions lead us to life. And that life is the unleavened bread, the living bread, Yahusha. And how we receive from his words, teachings, wisdom, and understanding to empower us to worship and serve the Almighty Father more clearly, more accurately, more obediently. Unleavened bread is bread without outside influence. Let me share an important component for making bread: water. Do you know that the scriptures sometimes describe water as the word of Yahuwah? The word of Yahuwah. Let us take the living word of Yahuwah, Yahusha, and let us take the living word of Yahuwah that is spirit. And together we have the bread of life before us, O Yahshua. When we begin to understand the dynamics of this relationship, life will change for us in many ways. What is one component for making flour, which, when added with water, can be used to produce bread, as I stated? Let's look at Matthew chapter 13, verse 30. It says, "Let both grow together until the harvest time and the harvest. And at that time of harvest, I shall say to the reapers, first gather the darnel and bind them in bundles and burn them. But gather the wheat into my granary An example. Now, some translations will say, instead of darnel, it'll say tares. Many people think that only occur at resurrection. But I say to you, my brothers and sisters, when we pass on, some of us will face physical death before the physical return of Yahusha. We'll know whether we're darnel or tare or wheat. Because those that are darnel and wheat upon physical death goes to hell, that lake of fire. And those that are of wheat rest and sleep to the physical return. So it's not a great receipt of being burned at resurrection time. I submit to you, upon physical death, we'll know our position. But we would have expensed time that we cannot regain. We cannot hit rewind. We would have discovered whether we are children of the Almighty Father. Now consider the physical and spiritual properties of water. We all know that literal, but what about the spiritual water, the spiritual word of Yahuwah? Yahusha answered and said to her, if you knew the gift of the Almighty One and who it is that says to you, give me to drink, you would have asked him and he would have given you living water. This is John 4th chapter, 10th verse. Living water. When people talk about show us the script, show me the script, any mature brother or sister, we should encourage that person to also read the scripture with a prayerful mind to serve and worship the Almighty Father, not with the intent to learn the scriptures to manipulate people, to lead people astray, to take advantage of people, but to read the scriptures so that you might grow closer to the Almighty Father. He goes on to say, John 4th chapter, 13th and 14th verse. Drop with me to that verse. John 4:13 and 14 saying, Yahusha answered and said to her, everyone drinking of the water, this water, shall thirst again. But whoever drinks of the water I give him shall certainly never thirst. And the water that I give him shall become in him a fountain of water springing up into everlasting life. Yahusha, my brothers and sisters, believe it or not, there are those of us have already experienced reading the scriptures, then going back, reading over the same passage and reading over again and getting different things that reinforce what we got the first time. And there are those who will read and may have misinterpreted, miscomprehended what they read, but went back and read it and was enlightened to something they didn't see before. I present to you that living water is the word of the Almighty Yahuwah. Now keep in mind these words. Yahusha. Come with me to John 1:1 and 1:2. John chapter 1 verses 1 and 2. It says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with the Almighty One, and the Word was the Almighty One, and he was in the beginning with the Almighty One. And if you drop down to the 14th verse, same chapter, it says, and the Word became flesh and pitched his tent among us, and we saw his esteem, the esteem as an only brought forth of a Father, complete in favor and truth. It's speaking of Yahusha, the physical manifestation of Yahuwah's word. Be prayerful, my brothers and sisters. Discern, understand. Abba Yahuwah has presented many life connections. Throughout the scriptures, there are many examples. There are many actions that are cyclical in nature. In other words, we see some of the same similar behaviors, from obedience to disobedience, from benefits to consequences. And if we begin to see these connections, my brothers and sisters, it makes for a stronger individual. It makes for a stronger set-apart nation. Know this, not all will grow to discern these words. There are some with wicked intentions and unbelief who will experience blindness caused by Abba Yahuah. So simply saying, show me the scripts is not going to always do the trick, my brothers and sisters. You may wonder, is there more? The answer is yes, as to why this message is important. In the coming days, we will face a choice between who we truly desire to become servants to. In other words, for some will be willing to become slaves because of famine and lack of food. Let me take you to an example why this is important when we talk about life connections. Here's an example how hunger can make you want to sell yourself for food. If you sell yourself as a slave to the anti-Messiah, if you sell yourself to the wicked ones because of food, where's the life connection? So beware, my brothers and sisters. Here's an example that I'm speaking of in Genesis 47:19. It says, why should we die before your eyes, both we and our land? Buy us in our land for bread, and let us in our land be servants of Pharaoh, and give us seed, and let us live and not die, and let the land not lie waste. Now keep in mind, this was an example when there were those who was willing to sell themselves to Pharaoh because of hunger. Now I submit to you, life connections. The Almighty Father gave an example of this in a way in which we can prepare to not let ourselves be seduced and to design to sell ourselves in these end times. Come with me to Matthew 24:7, my brothers and sisters. It says, for nation shall rise against nation and reign against reign, and there shall be scarcities of food and deadly diseases and earthquakes in places. We are about to face stiff challenges where we must decide, my brothers and sisters, who it is we will worship, who it is we will be slaves to. Yahusha clearly said, whoever drinks of the water he give shall certainly never thirst. Do you know, my brothers and sisters, that the living word of the Almighty Father is endless? It's more than just reading from Genesis to Revelation. So many of us forget that life connections begin with the word of Yahuah, begins with Yahuah. Are we able to discern this word? It is so important that we grow to discern that the text can be made alive. Not all will grow to discern the words, and it's because of wicked intentions and unbelief. Who will experience blindness caused by Abba Yahuah will be those with unbelief. We will witness those who say, show us the script, show me the script, but they still wouldn't get it. This message is important because in the coming days ahead, my brothers and sisters, we will need everything that connects everyone that is set apart to be strong, to walk in the strength and the newness of the word of Yahuah. As you can see, I got some of my slides out of order. But let us not become slaves to the wicked one, my brothers and sisters. If we are forewarned, we can be forearmed. You see, my brothers and sisters, end times will get intense We will discover the strength in identifying and moving closer to one another, why that's important. We will discover the life connections as Yahuah worked in us, through us, one towards another. These actions will be a result of us recognizing the need to discern and understand life connections. How are we connected? What are we giving to one another? What are we serving up as the Almighty Father open our eyes? What do we contribute towards one another? It is important to know that much of our learning can come from cyclical behaviors presented in the scriptures. As the letter and spirit are combined, we will grow to understand more clearly these scriptures and how they can affect our walk, our life, our growth and maturity in wisdom and knowledge. Yashra, Yashra, I'm compelled to present the following words, for I believe as I gradually come to an end, these words are important. Come with me to Malachi 3:6. Malachi 3:6 reads this, for I am Yahuah, I shall not change, and you, O sons of Yaakov, shall not come to an end. Similar words are said once again in James, connecting us, my brothers and sisters, reinforcing us to the closeness of a set-apart walk, to the closeness of the desires of the Almighty Father. James says, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no change nor shadow of turning. You may have heard me speak of many examples of things that are cyclical, things that are alike. But as we enter in these end times, let us look at the things that connect to life, that strengthen us. Let us realize the importance of preparing together. And let us start moving closer to one another. By now, I pray that Life Connections have brought some encouragement to you. I pray that you are able to see how the letter and the spirit together sheds more light on our set-apart journey. How from even during the feast days, from Passover instructions to life, to unleavened bread, receiving unleavened bread, Yahusha, the word of Yahuah being manifest before us as the unleavened bread. How Yahusha is the bread of life. How just saying Yahusha is not enough. It requires us discerning the living spirit of the word that's manifest before us. Yashra, Yashra, look at the things that connect. And as you share scriptures, look at how they connect. And if they do not connect, present prayer before the Almighty Father on how they connect, or should those things that are being taught or said be removed from us. If there is not a connection, maybe it's the product of a darnel or tear. Maybe it's the product of wickedness. Yashra, Yashra, as we speak to one another, as we learn from one another, let us look at what connects. And I assure you, if we begin to recognize what connects, it will make a big difference. In the midst of all the confusion and disagreements and different interpretation of scriptures, when we search for what connects, unity is built. If indeed what we see connecting is set apart. Pray on this message, my brothers and sisters. Pray on the ability to, as you study scriptures, you see connections to other scriptures. And I believe in this series, I will share with you other connections that you may not have given consideration to. So stay tuned. There's more in this series, Letter and Spirit. Thank you for your patience. Pray and seek to discern and understand why life connections are important. On that note, I end by saying to you, be encouraged. Be encouraged. There's much to learn. Shalom. Shalom, my brother, my sister, my family.